Good evening, everyone. My name is Evan Pilling. I'm the grants coordinator for the New Mexico Outdoor Recreation Division. Thank you so much for jumping on the call tonight. We're going to be talking about the Outdoor Equity Fund. If you're not here to learn about the Outdoor Equity Fund, you're in the wrong place. Um, just a couple of quick housekeeping items for tonight's webinar. You will notice that you are all muted. All of your mics are muted. That's by design. We're going to keep everyone muted throughout the webinar. If you have questions, because we would love to answer your questions, you can put those in the Q&A section, and we will answer them. We're going to reserve about 15 minutes at the end of the webinar to answer the questions. And so you can put your questions in there. If you have very specific questions that don't seem to be applicable to the larger group, we will probably answer those differently. We're going to focus on answering questions that seem like they would be relevant to the larger Outdoor Equity Fund community. So with that, we will get going. If I can click back on here to get on the right screen. So meet the Outdoor Equity Fund team. We are a small but mighty team of 4 folks. We live within the Economic Development Department of the state of New Mexico. Karina Armijo is our director. Carl Colonius is the program manager who runs the Trails Plus grant program and also serves as an outdoor recreation planner. We'll talk a little bit more about Trails Plus towards the end of the presentation. Michelle Simon, who's also on the call, is our marketing coordinator. She is the mastermind behind all of our design assets, all the social media, all of the shout outs for grantees, etc. And then again, my name is Evan Pilling. I'm the grants coordinator. I started with ORD at the beginning of May, and so I'm still relatively new to the position. So please take any information I provide with a somewhat large grain of salt. We try to be factually accurate, but occasionally we don't have the answer to specific questions. So we're scheduled to go for an hour tonight, so we will be wrapped up by 6:30. If anyone, obviously, if folks need to leave early, they can go ahead and do so. A little bit of background on the ORD. The division was created in 2019. We were one of the first in the nation. We've been leading the charge on supporting development of statewide outdoor recreation offices. Most of the Western states have them, more and more coming every year. Core values are sustainable economic development, equity and access, conservation and stewardship, education, and health and well-being. The Outdoor Equity Fund was also created in 2019. It was the first of its kind grant program to help underserved and marginalized youth get outside for educational experiences. To date, we've awarded $6.5 million to 285 organizations, and we've served, and those organizations have served a total of more than 83,000 New Mexico youth. So pretty big impact. It's getting bigger every year thanks to the support and the help of all of you on this call who are providing the programming. For fiscal year 26, we do have some updates. First off, for those of you who have been past grantees, we're moving away from a calendar year system and moving over to a fiscal year system. The state fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. And so the current OEF grant cycle that's open is the fiscal year 2026 grant cycle. So you'll notice that the paperwork reflects that. There has been some fluctuation in funding year over year. This year, we have a total for fiscal year 26. We have a total of $3 million available. We ended up we have $3 million available this year. And then for those who have noticed, there was in addition to our standard equity fund and land of enchantment legacy funding, ORD received a $3 million special appropriation. In order to maintain sustainable year-over-year funding, we've decided to roll $1 million over to fiscal year 27. So for this year, we have for this fiscal year, we have a total of $3 million in grant funds available. That will be available in 2 rounds. Round one, which is what we're currently in, opened on June 1st, and this application round ends July 31st. And then round two opens on January 1st and closes January 31st. You might notice that starting in round two of fiscal year 26, we are only going to have a 1 month application period as opposed to what has historically been 2 months. That is basically just so that we can uh, award funding and get funding out the door in a more timely fashion. Um, for those who aren't familiar, everything we do for our Outdoor Equity Fund and Trails Plus grants goes through the submittable grant portal. It's a pretty intuitive, pretty easy online grant portal. We'll be showing more information about that down the road. If you go to NM Outdoors, what is nmoutdoors.org, unmute yourself.
nmoutside.com. I'll drop the link in
Thank
the
you.
chat.
I should know our own. I've been looking at so many websites. nmoutside.com, which is the Outdoor Recreation Division website. That's where you're going to find all the information about our grants. Trails Plus and Outdoor Equity Fund each have their own page. If you go to the the Outdoor Equity Fund website, you will notice that there's a handy dandy button to go to the submittable application portal. And we also have a grant guide, and most of the questions that folks have are answered in the grant guide. And so we would really encourage everyone to take a look at that grant guide. We've got some pretty good detail in there. Also, a very cool tool that we've included is a grant recipients map, so you can actually see the distribution of where we're funding projects, because we really try to focus on providing funding statewide. Again, these are the first couple pages of the, one other thing to point out, we do have a Spanish translation of the grant guide. And so for any Spanish speakers, or if your preference is to get the information in Spanish, we do have a Spanish translation of that as well. Again, please review the grant guide. There's some recapping of the information I just discussed. In the grant guide, there are some important things to pay attention to. Number one, who is eligible for Outdoor Equity Fund grants? Well, I'm glad you guys asked. Eligible applicants can include tribes, pueblos, other tribal entities, municipalities, counties, 501c3 nonprofits, K through 12 schools and school districts, and colleges and universities. If you have any questions about whether or not you're eligible, you can reach out and we can answer those for you. But some of the ineligible entities would be other state of New Mexico divisions, federal agencies, LLCs, any for-profit businesses, etc. If you are one of those ineligible groups, we ask that you partner with an eligible body to apply. Talked about the funding, the application cycles and the deadlines. Again, this current application period, the deadline for application submission is the end of this month. That would be July 31st. So please make sure that you get your application in before there. Outdoor Equity Fund grants can range from $5,000 to $40,000. In terms of match, for most applicants, there is a required 2-to-1 match. That means that if you apply for $10,000, you would be expected to provide a $5,000 match. If you apply for $40,000, you would be expected to provide a $20,000 match. Match can be cash or in kind, meaning it can be a direct cash contribution to grant-funded projects, or it can be volunteer hours. It can be community donations. Other grant funding sources can be used for the match as well. It can include staff time, and so we try to be pretty accommodating. There is no match required for certain applicants. Number one, if you are a tribal community, you don't have to qualify for a match. If you're a rural community, rural being any part of the state other than Los Alamos County, I feel like it's a little bouncing ball, Los Alamos County, Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, Farmington, Las Cruces, Roswell, Santa Fe, or anywhere within a 10-mile radius of those city boundaries, you would qualify as a rural community or a rural applicant. That means that you would qualify for a match waiver. You can select that option in your application. Even if you do qualify for the match waiver, it's encouraged to provide some match that will strengthen your application. And so please keep that in mind when you're looking at your application and your budget. If you do not qualify as a tribal community or a rural community, but you feel like you would still benefit from a match waiver, we're definitely willing to have that discussion. My email is at the end of the my email is going to be at the end of this presentation. You can shoot me an email and we can discuss whether or not you would qualify for a match waiver. Contract and reporting requirements. It is an 18-month funding timeline from the date that the grant agreement is signed and executed. So that's not when you're notified that you're awarded funding. It is when you have signed off on your grant agreement and the Outdoor Recreation Division Director has signed off on it. And it's 18 months from that timetable. It could go faster. You know, some programs have a 90-day life cycle. Some programs have an 18-month timetable, but it is up to 18 months. Grant funds are paid in full upfront at the start of the funding cycle. And so that can be by a paper check, that can be by an electronic transfer. All of that information is covered in the W-9, which I'll cover shortly. In terms of reporting, we require a midpoint progress report and a final report. All of that is done through Submittable. Awardees are sent reminders with links to their progress report and final report. We also ask that folks send us any photos and videos that they have because we love to see the programming and we love to tell your stories. We ask that you mention us and ORD on social media, tag the program, help us get the word out. Some additional information is grants. We try to make a good effort to split grants between tribal, rural, Sakia, land grant, and urban communities. So again, if you look at that state map, there really is an emphasis on trying to equitably spread grant funds around the state. Some examples of eligible and ineligible expenses. Things that Outdoor Equity funds can be used for would be services, recreational and educational. That can include build labor, contractors, any program materials and equipment. That can be paddling equipment, climbing equipment, educational materials, signage, any of the equipment or materials that support that funding. Transportation and travel is allowable. We understand that one of the big barriers to providing equitable outdoor programming can be transportation. That can include school buses, that can include fuel and mileage for vehicles, anything that helps get program participants out to program sites. We discussed build labor. Of note is if you have any youth interns, that's all allowable under build labor. So if you have interns, if you have a workforce development component, that is an allowable expense. You can use OEF funds for insurance, for food, really anything that is directly in the service of getting youth outside and engaged in outdoor recreation or the natural world. Some ineligible entities or expenses would be programs without significant exposure to outdoor nature-based environments. If it is an entirely indoor STEM learning program, that would likely not be an allowable, an eligible entity. Traditional parks and rec, or as we call them, stick and ball sports. So if it's a tennis league or a soccer league or a football team, that would not be an eligible entity for outdoor equity funding. Infrastructure development, I'll talk about it a little later, but Outdoor Equity Fund, the grant program is specifically intended to support programming to get kids outside. So if there's equipment associated with it, anything like that, that's allowable. If it's anything that is physical infrastructure that goes in the ground, that would fall under Trails Plus, and I'll talk about that a little bit more down the road. And we cannot use OEF funds for out-of-state travel as well. All programming has to happen inside the state of New Mexico. We have a pretty comprehensive, frequently asked question section in the grant guide. Again, please go ahead and review that, especially before you ask any detailed questions. Very important if you want to find out about updates for Outdoor Recreation Division, for Outdoor Equity Fund, etc., please sign up for our newsletter. We send out a lovely newsletter twice a month. It has Outdoor Recreation Division updates. It has any jobs that we know about. It has any relevant events. It's a very useful newsletter. We also do have social media pages on Instagram and Facebook, so please follow us there as well. Those are the best ways to find out about goings on and updates. So some important things to note in your application process. Number one, this is a screenshot of the personal settings section in Submittable. You really, really, really want to check that yes, I want to receive email notifications box. That is how applicants are notified about whether or not they were funded. That is how you receive update reminders for the progress report. That's how we communicate. So please, 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 when you create your profile, make sure to check that yes, I want to receive email notifications box. An important thing to note with Submittable is that we run the back end grant review and scoring process, but we don't manage your account. And so if you have technical issues with Submittable, if you forget your password and you get locked out or anything like that, we can't help you with that. You would need to contact Submittable support directly. Another important thing for the application process is we have moved over to a streamlined W-9 form. The W-9 is the financial form that has to be included with the application. Even if you've used a different form in the past, we really ask that, or we require that folks use this updated W-9 form. There's a link to it in the application. There's also a link to the sample form with instructions that we created here. A very, very, very important thing. So for organizations that are awarded, this is what is required for funding to get dispersed. And so if there are issues with the W-9, it delays getting funding out the door. And we want to make sure that grantees are funded in as timely a manner as possible. One of the biggest issues that comes up is that part 4, the W-9 must have a wet signature. That means that this form is printed out, signed with a pen, scanned, and uploaded. And it must have a signature date of less than 6 months at the time of submission. If it doesn't have those two components, it will get kicked back and it will delay the funding process. Again, there's a link to both the W-9 form and this instruction form on the application and Submittable. Another update on the application is we have updated the budget template. We've tried to make things a little more consistent, both to make it clearer for grantees and also for our internal reviewing. This is it's an Excel spreadsheet that you can download again in the grant application. It will have drop-down boxes for more consistent categories. It'll have drop-down boxes for whether it's a cash or in-kind match type, the amount, the description of what it is, and then these pink columns will be completed with the final reporting. So that's so that we can track how funds are actually being spent and get a better idea of how consistent that is with the application. So again, you can download this in the application as well. But an important thing to keep in mind is this will be, for those who are awarded, this will be included verbatim in the grant agreement. So what you put in here is what will be copied and pasted into the grant agreement, and that will be tied into the deliverables for the grant. And Michelle, if there's anything obvious that I'm forgetting, please let me know.
No worries, I'll jump in.
All right, we talked about this a bit earlier, but reporting requirements. We have an online progress report at the midpoint. At ORD's option, we may request to do a site visit or an update call. In a perfect world, we would have the time and capacity to get out to see all of the amazing programming that you all do. That said, we're a small but mighty division of 4, and so we can't get out in person to see everyone. But we will try to make some sort of additional contact throughout the grant period. There will be a final report We ask that you give us a social media shout out. And again, we love getting photos and videos. The storytelling is such an important part of this grant program, and we love being able to share the amazing work that you all do. Quick mention of some other grant programs. I mentioned it a bit, but the other grant program that the Outdoor Recreation Division runs is the Trails Plus grant program. That funds infrastructure, so that can be trails, trail design, bike parks, trailhead kiosks, bathrooms, parking lot improvements, any of the physical infrastructure that supports outdoor recreation. Um, that application cycle is opened on July 1st and it closes September 30th. There's an informational webinar about that on August 14th that I believe Michelle just posted in the chat. And you can find out all the information that you need to about Trails Plus on the ORD website as well. And then there are a number of other grant programs that folks might be interested in. And so the best consolidated resource that we found is the New Mexico Main Street website. And I believe that this QR code will take you there, or you can just Google New Mexico Main Street. But depending on the kind of entity that you are, you might be interested in the Leave No Trace grant program or some of the tourism grants. But so definitely check out the New Mexico Main Street grant guide, because that has a lot of very relevant grant programs for other grantees or for other organizations. And I believe that comes to the end of our the presentation part of it. So we're going to go through and run through the Q&A or the chat to see if there are any questions. If you do have more detailed questions, we're trying a new thing this year, and we've created a one-on-one sign up thing. So you can scan that QR code. You can email me directly for the link. You can follow that bit.ly link, but that will take you to a Microsoft bookings link. And if you click on that, you can schedule either a 15 or a 30-minute call with me, and I'm happy to take a deep dive into your questions, or we can talk about your program ideas, help you walk you through the application. The only caveat there is that during the application period, we can't tell folks what they should or shouldn't do in an application. We can provide neutral information to support you in providing the strongest application possible. But I feel bad we can't say yes, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. But please, if you have detailed questions, sign up for a one-on-one. I'd love to get to know you all and hear more about your programs.
Thanks, Evan. We'll go ahead and look at the chat for some Q&A. It looks like nobody's entered anything in the actual Q&A section. So in the chat, we have somebody asking if a tribally controlled school is eligible.
The answer to that is going to be yes, because it is a tribal entity and an educational entity.
And somebody else has asked, can we include service projects with youth that include garden building for community members?
Yes, yes. So environmental education is covered under the Outdoor Equity Fund. Agricultural education, again, as long as there is a substantive tie-in to the natural world, then it would be allowable under outdoor recreation. And I think that includes the question of, during the winter months, can we use funds for indoor climbing and indoor archery? Yes, so that would still fall under the outdoor recreation umbrella. Even if it's a climbing gym and you're pulling on plastic, it's still outdoor recreation.
And is funding allowed for travel of out-of-state educators?
I'm gonna guess that means that, can you contract with out-of-state educators to come in and provide programming within the state of New Mexico? And the answer is yes. So out-of-state nonprofits or out-of-state educators can be contracted with, as long as 100% of the grant funds go directly in support of providing programming for New Mexico youth.
And somebody else is asking, can funds be used to build an outdoor climbing wall?
Not outdoor equity funds. If you had an outdoor climbing wall and you wanted to provide programming there, that would be outdoor equity fund. For any infrastructure projects, that would fall under Trails Plus.
Okay. And somebody else has said, I am a new organization. Are you open to new organizations applying for this grant?
We are, yeah, we definitely are open to new organizations. You would have to either have your 501(c)(3) status or similar incorporation, and if you are not a 501(c)(3), then you would need to partner with partner with a fiscal sponsor.
Okay, and somebody else has asked, are city parks considered outdoor recreation?
It depends. Um, it, it would, for example, if it's a traditional playground, it would not necessarily be considered outdoor recreation. If it was a bike park or a pump track or a trail at a city park, yes, absolutely. So again, if it falls on the more traditional parks and rec side of things, typically no. If it is outdoor recreation at a city facility, then yes.
Okay, and somebody else is asking, is there a requirement for past year's audits for a nonprofit?
No, no, but we do expect that all nonprofits are in good standing with the IRS, and we will from time to time review, look nonprofits up in the IRS and state database, make sure that if we have any questions.
And Chad is asking, are college students too old to count as youth?
Within the scope and scale of outdoor equity fund, yes, our funds are intended to be used for youth up to the age of 18. That said, if you have an internship program or some sort of an outdoor recreation workforce training program, then older youth could be considered interns or trainees.
Okay, and somebody else is asking, for winter, can you provide indoor activities and supplement with outdoor-based learning? What is an acceptable ratio?
There is not a set ratio that we have established so far. Again, as long as there is as long as there is a substantive tie-in to outdoor-based learning and recreation, then it would be allowable.
Okay, and then Leslie, who asked the question about city parks being considered outdoor recreation, has a follow-up question. A youth running club where practices take place at city parks and city open spaces, would that be eligible?
Excellent question. I think that the distinction there would be if it's an organized track team that's running on a paved track with traditional track and field exercises, that would not be covered. If it is more on the trail running side of things or recreational running club, I would say that yes, that could be considered allowable.
Okay. Susan is asking, would improvements to existing outdoor structures be considered infrastructure?
Yes, yes, it would. So that would again be Trails Plus. If it's something that's in the ground or bolted to the ground or non-movable, then all of that is considered infrastructure and it's all Trails Plus. Um,
Okay, we've got somebody else asking about the budget. They understand that it's ideal to stay as close as possible to the proposed budget, but if they allocate funds for transportation and nearing the end of the year, they find that they haven't used the funds, can they reallocate them?
yes, as long as it still falls within the overall scope that's in the grant agreement. So, let's say for example, yeah. So yes, funds can be shifted between budget line items as long as they are still within the scope that is covered in the grant application.
Okay. Somebody just asked about the webinar recording. That will be emailed within a few days, and then we'll also be posting it to YouTube and have a link to it on our website. The previous webinar is also up on the website, so if in the meantime you have a burning question or need to review something, you can go to our website to find that information. Somebody else is asking, when you say outdoor recreation, can recreation include educational and enjoyable work?
And Susan, it looks like you're going to have a number of pretty specific questions. So I'm going to suggest that you schedule a one-on-one call so we can get into the meat of what your program and project would be. Middle school and high school mountain biking clubs would work, yes. And so any of these programs, I think one of the things I glossed or didn't glossed over is that by statute, one of the solid requirement for outdoor equity funds is, where is it? Um, There we go. Participants. Grant funds must serve a population where at least 40% are low-income youth up to the age of 18. So um, any of these programs, there has to be a low-income youth component to it, and that can include Title I schools. It can include free and reduced lunch. It can include specific demographic information for your participant base. But so just the question about mountain bike clubs, what you would need to do is document that minimum 40% of your program participants are low-income youth. Um, Promoting a bicycle race, I think we would need to talk about that more. In general, OEF funds are not for event promotion, but if that was tied in with a larger um, scope of work, providing mountain bike programming to youth, then we could talk about it. But I get that my suggestion would be that you schedule a one-on-one for that.
Carol is asking, can my organization offer our program at a location such as a state park, forest service, districts, etc.? The answer is definitely yes, but you need to make sure you have like the permitting in place to host any sort of activities on state parks or forest service.
Yes, and please make sure that regarding permits and agreements, please make sure that you have permits and agreements in place prior to applying. Um, Sometimes folks will have a handshake agreement, or maybe they've had a favorable conversation, but you really want to have specific permits and agreements in place before you apply, especially if you're working with tribal entities. But any public lands, yeah, make sure that you have permission to be working where you want to be working.
Okay, we've got another question. Lots of great questions today.
I
Thank you
know,
guys.
making us work for it
Um,
tonight.
yeah. So someone else is asking, how are low income youth tracked for reporting?
I talked a little bit about that, but that can range from if you are working with a school district, you can pull Title I or free or reduced lunch data. You can go into census data and pull municipal or county-wide income data, socioeconomic data. You can do direct demographic tracking of your youth. So we don't have specific metrics for how folks do that, just because it varies so much community by community, but those are some of the most common ways.
And Susan is asking, do endorsements help an application?
Yes, they do. Letters of support help. Meaningful letters of support help, and more meaningful, like a greater quantity of meaningful letters of support help. So go out to your stakeholders, go out to the community who you're serving with your programming, and get those letters of support, and definitely include those with your application.
And just to add to that, just make sure that they're recent. They're not from, a year or two ago, that they are for the exact programming that you're applying for.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want them to be specific to this project and this application.
Okay, somebody else is asking, are your reports prompted with different narrative requests and demographic-based questions? So I think this is in regard to like our final reports and midway reports.
For the reporting, yes, there are specific prompts. Yeah, we don't just say send us a Word doc with your reporting. It's all done through Submittable, and there are specific prompts, specific metrics, and word limits.
And demographic-based questions.
Yes and no. It will be self-evident in the we don't require that grantees keep specific demographic information for participants. We're looking at developing systems so that we can get a better understanding of who our program participants are.
Right. Looks like we're kind of tapering off with the questions. Does anybody else have anything you want to add? Give it just a minute.
Lots of detailed questions. I guess I should put the one-on-one slide back up. Oh, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah, I also dropped the link for that in the chat, so
Okay.
you guys can just scroll up in the chat to get there or scan that QR code. But yeah, that's a great opportunity to go into detailed questions.